Amit is the co-founder and CTO of Thoughtspot. Prior to starting Thoughtspot, Amit led a team of engineers at Google that was responsible for building large-scale machine learning infrastructure for AdSense ad ranking. Amit is one of the early engineers who joined the Bing team and built the first distributed system there responsible for computations over web graph for Bing. Amit is also co-author of Elements of Programming Interviews and Algorithms for Interviews. Amit received his PhD in computer science from the University of Texas at Austin and a Bachelor of Technology in Electrical Engineering from IIT Kanpur. It is my pleasure to also introduce to you Vipin, who will participate in the Fireside chat with Amit. Vipin is the founder, MD of Global Launch Partners, a platform to help venture-funded businesses to expand operations internationally. Vipin has been a 2x entrepreneur and VC investor in India and Southeast Asia. His last venture, OnlineTyari, was acquired by Reliance in 2020 and had raised funding from some of the marquee investors in India and US. Before starting Global Launch Partners, Vipin was Senior Director Investments at Fosun RZ Capital. Vipin has managed investments and exits in 9 companies and have been on the board of 7 companies at different times. He has also been an advisor to Government of India for its ambitious digital literacy mission. Vipin completed his undergrad in chemical engineering at IIT Kanpur, where he specialized in biological engineering. I understand that was the year it was launched, and obtained masters from IIM-Ahmedabad. And for IIT Kanpur community, to revive a old debate, who is better, Hall 3 versus Hall 2? Actually, he's a Hall 3 guy. Okay, with these words, I invite both Amit and Vipin to come and start the next segment of the program today.
Hey everyone, good morning. Just waiting for Amit to join.
Vipin, how are you?
Hi, good evening to you. I guess it's not very late yet, or too late already?
Yeah, no, it's perfect time. It's 9 p.m. or so. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Pleasure here too. Amit, Shamin has done a phenomenal introduction for yourself, done a great bit of background telling about you, but would be good to also hear about your story, how you sort of started it up, and a little bit of snippet about what happened at IIT Kanpur. So the first 5-6 minutes, whatever is about yourself, Thoughtspot, and your little bit of story about IIT Kanpur.
Would love to. As you probably all do, I think the 4 years at IIT Kanpur are some of the most cherished memories for me in life, and some of the best lifelong friends that I made there. So it's absolutely had a blast getting a bachelor's degree and building a world-class network at IIT Kanpur. And as I reflect back, I think whatever success I've had, the story of me would not have been possible without the amazing alumni of IIT Kanpur who's helped me every step of the way. I think starting from, my father, who was an alumni of IIT Kanpur, and kind of from the very beginning, it was like IIT Kanpur is the best IIT, and if you study well and if you're so lucky, you would actually make it there one day. So he was the original inspiration, and every step of the way, actually. So one of the things that I dreamed of at since childhood, because my father happened to be a professor in an engineering college, was to go earn my PhD from one of the best universities in the world. And when I applied right after graduation for a PhD program, I couldn't get anywhere because I traditional Hindi medium kind of education. I wasn't very good at vocabulary. GRE score were very poor. And so my dreams of going and getting a PhD were almost shattered until I ended up sending application to one of the IIT alums, Professor Adnan Aziz at UT Austin, who happened to be someone who had the best BTech project in IIT Kanpur, and I happened to have that like 8 years later too. So it kind of connected with him, and he took a chance on me, and I was able to go and graduate. And within a month of actually moving to US and starting my PhD program, 5 of us from IIT Kanpur ended up in a pretty bad car accident. I had like 18 fractures from my head to neck to shoulder and everywhere, and I was in a full body suit for about 6 months, and it was a very near death experience. And I could not have survived after that if it was not for the amazing kindness of all the friends I had built at IIT Kanpur, who were at that time in US and helped me and support me through my recovery. I just could not have survived. At a later point in life, when I decided that I wanted to go be an entrepreneur, what do you know? Some of the alums had blazed the trail before me. So in particular, Dheeraj Pandey and Ajit Singh, these 2 guys had started Nutanix. And when I reached out to Nutanix, to Dheeraj, he connected me with Ajit, and Ajit and I connected, and we got started building Thoughtspot. So yeah, if there's one message I would give to everyone, look around yourself, all your friends and colleagues, whether that is the best ally, and that is the best support system you'll have. And support each other and be kind to each other, and it will be an asset lifelong.
That's a wonderful story. I'm sure this personal life experience that you mentioned about that huge accident, getting into it, and then sort of coming out brave and very well, and then obviously going off in life in terms of like doing this massive kind of startup. Definitely an inspiring story. I could also see on the screen a picture of your friends at IIT Kanpur who you shared earlier. Are these guys already still in touch with you? How do you sort of connect, and professionally as well as personally? That would be a good insight for the entrepreneurs as to how does the personal and professional life sort of help people?
Yeah, absolutely. These are some of my best friends. They are my wingmates, starting from Hall 3, going on Hall 1 as well. And we still stay in touch. As you get busy with life and family and children, the thing you don't get to interact as often as you used to, but every time we meet, whether it's been after a month or after a year, it's like no time has been lost, and we are back to the days of pulling each other's leg and having fun and remembering old fond stories. And we are always there to help each other professionally as well. And this was kind of my closest circle of friends, but across my entire career, I've always been able to reach out to various IIT alums, whether it was my batch, whether it was this hall or that hall or different year, and it's always been an amazing experience to work with people or get their support or help them.
Amit, especially since, and this is an audience which consider still sort of contains a large part of people from India so far. A lot of them are studying, and they're like, still not many of them are in the US. Tell us a bit more about how the networking is done among the IIT Kanpur alumni in the US. How do they reach out, and how do they support each other? Just a little bit of snippet, maybe with an example of what happened.
So this picture you're seeing is actually me and Ajit signing the papers in the office of the lawyers, incorporating our company about 8.5, 9 years back. And even though Ajit and I overlapped at IIT and knew of each other, we didn't really hang out together and know each other, right? And so when I was looking for co-founder to get started with. And, I was very strong technically, but I had very little idea about the business world, about how to raise money, or even how to think about an enterprise startup. I was kind of the algorithms, the problem solver guy. And I needed a partner in crime who would be a complement, right? Yeah. And so I reached out to Dheeraj. He introduced me to some of the investors that he was close with. And then through them, I met a number of potential co-founders. But eventually, when Ajit decided to start something new, Dheeraj was the one who connected us. And then we kind of started meeting every week for coffee and discussing different problems and figuring out if he was the right person I wanted to work with. He was trying to figure out if I'm the right person he wanted to work with, and figuring out the problems at the same time. There are a number of people that I've been able to stay in touch with through college and after, but there are a number of people that, just knowing that they are, IIT alum, you could reach out to them either through LinkedIn or something. And almost invariably, they'll be extremely kind and respond in whatever way they can. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And does it all start around your hostel? Does it start around your batch? Where does the locus lie in that sense? Classic IITian question, right? Where is the locus of all the network typically?
So I've never felt, the need to go and explicitly network with IITK people. It's kind of, in my mind, it's assumed that we share an alma mater. Okay. And so in some ways we share each other's best interest. And like whatever connections I have with IIT Kanpur alum is more based on just friendships that have been cultivated over the years, either by the fact that we took a class together, we stayed in a hostel together, or we did some event together, went to some event together, and things like that. I'm not trying to minimize networking. Networking is absolutely important. It happens at various forums, whether you're going to a conference or whether you are in some sort of IIT network event or things like that. And it's really important to, put yourself out there and go meet as many people, learn from their experiences and make connections. But in particular for IITK alums, I haven't felt the need to explicitly go and network with people.
Yep. It's almost as if they're there, right? It's almost like family. You don't reach out to family every morning and stuff, but they're there. I think that's that I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Very nice. So one key message to the audience, build friends. I think Abhay has also emphasized it massively. Build friends, cherish the relationships, build on them, because that's what is the real value that you take away from Kanpur. No matter how far away you are, candidly, as an entrepreneur myself, there are so many times that over the last almost like now 18 years since I left campus, I might not have reached out to a friend since I left it 18 years back. But over the last 3-4 months in COVID times, there have been so many instances where people in the US who were my friends and who have left shores and gone back, reached out, and it was always assumed that we are there for each other. So they have their family in India, and the Indian guys immediately supported their family members. Vice versa, if a guy in the US is looking for help, or a guy in India is looking for help to go relocate to US or set up some business in the US, I don't think we've ever even thought that that guy in the US, our batchmate, will not support us. So definitely, I think really adds a lot of value to invest in friendships and not sort of do backstabbing and running after only points and CGPAs at Kanpur. I think that's the key message I think I would like to draw to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think competition is a good thing to inspire everyone to do better, but I think cooperation always beats competition.
Absolutely. No two doubts about it. Amit, in your journey so far, beyond the personal accident, and which was, I'm sure, a life-changing situation, from the business and entrepreneurial journey that you've gone through, what has been the most challenging piece of the story so far in the so many years that you've done it now?
Yeah, so in a way, Thoughtspot has been almost like a dream journey for me. And there's always difficulty, there's always, challenges, and that's what inspires you. Every morning you get up and say, what's the next challenge you can conquer? But we've been extremely fortunate that we never had, this kind of do or die kind of moment that if we don't get this right, we will die as a company.
Okay.
And part of the reason why it has been that way is, again, because of a lot of knowledge and wisdom being passed from one set of company to another. So before starting Thoughtspot, Ajit was one of the co-founders at Nutanix, and before Dheeraj and Ajit co-founded Nutanix, they actually went and talked to a number of startup founders and studied what they had done and what worked and what didn't work.
Yep.
And even before that, Dheeraj was part of a startup that didn't survive. And so there's so many learnings that kind of accumulated in one place, which made it very much possible for us to kind of see a little bit ahead of time as to what's coming, what's around the corner. And that really helped us do well. In terms of challenging moments, I would probably pick out one point when, so we had in some ways we are somewhat of a unique startup in the sense that when we got to the design board, quite often, and I don't mean this criticism, but quite often the focus of a startup is to kind of take existing technologies, apply to a new problem, and pull together everything that kind of exists as a concept and build a product and bring it to the market, right? We wanted to solve a problem in a space. We deliberately went to a space that was extremely crowded. And there was a lot of competition, there were a lot of players. And the reason we went there was because it was a large market. It's an extremely valuable problem, the one that we are solving in general in the industry. But what that means is that you have to build a solution that is significantly better than whatever else everyone else has built. And so we kind of almost went on a journey of some core computer science fundamental innovation to be able to build a solution for a problem that no one knew how to solve. And so we ended up building a lot of new systems, building new data structures, new algorithms, so that we could solve the problem in a way that people had tried and never succeeded. And so in terms of technical ambition, what we have built is probably one of the most ambitious take on analytics industry. And as a result of that, it's like when you do that, you kind of run into all kinds of challenges and you figure out the problems and fix it.
The VCs
along the way
want a fast kind of deployment. They would want you to like sort of push out faster rather than like spending time designing new stuff. Classic those kind of challenges. But I'm sure Thoughtspot is at a great scale right now, right? And what are the plans now for?
Actually, so I wanted to get to the most challenging time, if you don't, if it's okay. I'll spend a couple of minutes. So when we launched our product in the market, one of the very first companies that called us because it solved a very specific need that they had was Walmart. And Walmart was a massive corporation, and initially we were hesitant whether we should even work with them or not, being so small. but we decided to kind of go head first and deploy there. And everything was working fine as they were testing things and setting things up. And then they started doing these training sessions where 60, 70 people will be in a room. And the moment the person training them will say, okay, now you should do this and hit enter, everybody will hit enter. And these simultaneous requests will come to our system and our database will kind of get crushed to its knees. And that was probably one of the most challenging times as a company for us, because we felt that the people who trusted in us and kind of put their jobs in line by betting on the tiny startup, we were failing them, and we had to fix this immediately. And so at the time, we were like 20-25% company, and all of us nearly didn't sleep for 2 nights, and like days and nights we're just kind of finding bugs and fixing them, finding bugs and fixing them. And 2 days later, we went with essentially a USB drive with a new patch and said, okay, let's deploy this and let's go. And then they did their next training session and everything was smooth. And from there on, it's been a wonderful journey.
Wow. Another thing that I sort of clearly look back from your thing is this dreamy-eyed thing about being an entrepreneur and being a guy who's always in suits and a rich guy. I don't think entrepreneurship is about that, clearly from this, right? So it's about solving the problem, being more active. And actually, I think the best guys like yourself, and Abhay was with us just before this talk, the best guys are the ones who are on the ground and like sort of solving problems themselves. Clearly, those are the guys who become the eventual winners. It's never a very sexy job in that sense, being an entrepreneur. It's tough, but at the same time, it's also rewarding for everyone if you are all putting in the journey toward the right direction. Tell us about the proudest moment so far, Amit, in the journey so far. Where do you think has been the moment which you would always like to cherish and put in front of others, saying, hey, this is what we did, and I'm so proud of it?
Yeah. Actually, being a parent, the proudest moments are always associated with, when my daughter does something amazing. But in this context, it's if we talk about professional things, I think the moments that I cherish the most are when, so we've been extremely fortunate as a company to be able to hire pretty much the best of the best talent that is out there that a startup could dream of. And it's somewhat self-congratulatory, but the kind of people we've been able to assemble as a company it's probably in the 90th or 95th percentile of the general population.
Wow.
And that's the thing that I've been most proud of. And and when one of those people comes to me ever and says that, thank you for creating this company and this significantly changed my life and created a better opportunity for me, that's probably the moment that I cherish the most. The other one that I would pick is we had we've started doing these user conferences for our users.
Yeah.
And last year was all virtual, but before that, so at the end of every user conference, we kind of do a session in the end where the exec team of Thoughtspot stands on stage, and there's everyone who attended the conferences in the audience, and they're free to ask whatever question they want to ask. And there were about 2,000 people there, and one of our customers stood up and said, are you guys looking to get acquired? And we said, no, we are building the company for the long term. And he said, thank you. It would really suck if you guys were, going to sell out for money or something, because what you're doing is so amazing. Keep it independent. And if you ever decide to sell it, I'm going to personally come and fly and tell you that this is a horrible thing to do. So I'm glad that you're planning to keep this independent. And that felt really good, that we built something that our customers feel that way, that they would never like us to change and continue innovating the way we are doing it.
Wow, such an inspiring thing. Amit, just like we are almost at the end of the talk, what are the last few words of wisdom that you would like to share with the community at IIT Kanpur? There are a couple of professors, senior guys from IIT also, about how we sort of can encourage entrepreneurship at the campus. Just a little bit of your thought process on that.
Yeah, so I think what I've come to learn is I'm trying to prioritize a couple of things in my mind that popped up. So I think the first thing is, in doing anything ambitious or anything important, I think the most important question is to answer why. Why do you want to do it? And entrepreneurship may not even be the right answer for everyone. Right? Like when I got out for IIT, I really wanted to be a professor somewhere and do fundamental research. And at that time, entrepreneurship wasn't the right answer for me. So you really have to find out why you want to be an entrepreneur. And a lot of times what happens is that if there's this phrase that you cannot be what you cannot see, right? So if you don't have the exposure, if you don't see what people are going through, what challenges they're overcoming, and what they're building, then it's a little bit hard to imagine yourself. So I think as an institution, we should definitely try and expose everyone as much as possible to the entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. I think that's really important. And the most important part of that is kind of just answering that why thing. The other thing that I never appreciated back in the day was that doing anything ambitious in life, academic success and doing well in studies and getting good grades is one of the dimensions, but it's just one of the many dimensions. And it's really important to train people to, learn how to collaborate, how to take risks, create situations where, taking risk is rewarded. I don't know how things are today, but, when I was growing up, our entire society and culture was all about being conservative and finding the safest path.
Yep.
And I think it's really important for us to deliberately create situations where taking risk is rewarded, so that we train our students to be brave and take risk. So I think that's the other thing that took me some time to learn, that to do anything ambitious in life, the most important thing is, are you willing to be brave? And that doesn't mean that you're not afraid. Being brave means that you are afraid and you still go and do it because it's that important to you. So at the time when I left Google and started Thoughtspot, just a year before, financially, I had started making probably 4 to 8 times more than what I was making before. Yeah. It was, in some ways, a pretty silly thing for me to leave that and just be 2 people and start a company and take that massive risk. But it actually worked the other way around. In my mind, it was like, given that I've been able to have that kind of financial success, really gives me the freedom to do whatever I really want and what will fulfill me. So I was able to take that out of the equation. And being brave, it's not just about financial freedom or, what if I fail? I think being brave also applies to the kinds of problem you can attack.
Yep.
If you look at, somebody like Elon Musk, he was coming out of building an internet banking startup, and then he goes and decides to build a space company and a car company, having zero training to do that.
Yep.
And just having this confidence that, whatever the problem may be, I'm smart enough that I'll go and figure it out. I'll learn the thing that's needed and I'll figure it out. I think that kind of attitude is extremely important.
Wow. Very inspiring. Just one thing which the Vice President of the Alumni Association has asked out here is basically, he's a professor in the US and he's curious as to whether there was an overlap between what you're doing at Hotspot and what you studied while you're doing your PhD work. Do they correlate, or is it something just by chance that it happened?
So I've happened to change the problem set and the space in which I work quite a bit. And, when I was at IIT Kanpur, I was trying to specialize in VLSI, and then with some, like I ended up doing computer vision kind of stuff. And then in my PhD, I was again studying formal methods. And then my advisor said that's not the right direction to go. So I ended up working on networking and parallel algorithms.
Yeah.
And then in job, I worked on search. And over here, it's been all about building intuitive interfaces and building a database and BI layer. So I've been all over, but as a sort of my fundamental training as a computer science person, I've been able to pull things from different domains into another domain that people are not thinking of and connect things. So being all over has actually helped me immensely. My master's thesis was actually an idea borrowed from formal methods applied to networking. Even one of the core data structures that we innovated on inside Thoughtspot to make search possible was actually a derivation from that particular data structure that I put in my master's thesis, which had nothing to do with what we are doing today in business intelligence, but just having that breadth allowed me to pull, knowledge from different places and apply where it was needed and people were not thinking about it.
Wow. So the classic debate about being a generalist versus a specialist. So you're saying it should be a good mix, right? So being a generalist allows you to have experience from different fields and get the best when you're looking at solving a particular problem. I remember this classic Google SDE 11 or 13. I think it's called SDE 13, right? The famous story of the hard disk search problem which they faced in the early years. That was
actually, I'm not familiar with that story, but I'll go look up after this.
So it was basically a story of how Google in its days when it was booming, the earliest guys at Google, and they were SDE 11, like one of the few co-founding team kind of guys, right? So everybody got together as to why the Google search is failing, why are solutions not coming in. And they banged their heads for 3 days continuously, day in, day out. All the Google engineers were not able to figure it out. And ultimately what was realized was it was a problem of optimization of how the Google search queries are stored in the hard disks. The innermost circle in which the queries are stored will rotate faster, and the hard disk will sort of fetch results faster from the innermost circle versus the outermost circle. And that was obviously something which came out not because of software knowledge, but more around. So I think being a generalist sometimes helps, and having that perspective. Definitely.
Yeah, so I've heard some very smart engineering leaders say that they always look for T-shaped individuals, which have kind of a little bit of breadth mile wide, and then they're really specialist in their area where they have a mile depth in a narrow field. So I guess on that analogy, I would not be a T-shaped. I would probably be sort of something with 3 different spikes or 4 different spikes in different areas.
X-shaped, Ivan, X-Men kind of thing. Great, Amit. This was really good chatting up with you. I'm sure the community of students, people attending really like this talk and are inspired now. Really look forward to sort of staying connected. And all of us at IIT Kanpur are thankful that you took out time today and shared with everybody your pearls of wisdom. We would also like to encourage you to sort of be engaged and stay engaged with the people at the campus to help them.
No, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure to, at least virtually come back to the campus and talk to everyone. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone.